Great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. This is Cloud Rendering Pipelines for Real-World Production. So just to introduce myself for a second and our panelists here we have with us this morning. So my name is Mike Owen. I'm a solutions architect with Amazon Web Services and the Thinkbox team. You may recognize the name Thinkbox because that was acquired by Amazon Web Services. Thinkbox software was acquired in March of 2017. So we've just celebrated just over 2 years now, being part of the Amazon Web Services family. Our work, Thinkbox, in terms of render farm scheduling, has actually expanded now, and we're much more about overall VFX, CG, content production, content creation, within the media and entertainment vertical. So we've got a very broad kind of spectrum of activities that we get up to, but of course we're probably most famous for Deadline, the industry-leading render farm management software. So based in London, I'm very fortunate to work with a number of other studios in lots of different situations, and I'd like to just ask each of the panelists here this morning just to introduce themselves. I've been very lucky to kind of put together a crack team, an A team of people that I've been able to persuade to come over to FMX. So please, Benoit.
Hello, so I'm Benoit Leveau. I'm head of pipeline and systems at Milk VFX.
Cool.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm the head of CG at Passion Pictures. And my kind of responsibility is kind of more strategy of the studio and kind of where we take technology and pipelines.
Good morning. My name's Reid from Untold Studios. I'm head of technology. You may not have heard of us. We're quite a new company. We opened October last year, and we're the first studio to be operating completely in the public cloud. And I just come to share a bit of knowledge with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So what I think makes this session hopefully is going to be really, really great is if we can get to the point of each of the panelists kind of talking about their architecture, talking about how their studios operate currently in collaboration with Amazon, but also opening up to having a discussion, an open discussion, and hopefully getting some questions from the audience here as well this morning for these panelists. So what I think is quite nice is between my three guests here is we have the different areas of the business. We have from the head of technology to the head of pipeline to the head of CG. So three very different but obviously complementary kind of visions and opinions of how things come together potentially when you're wanting to operate or part of your business is willing to operate in the cloud. So what do we mean by this? Well, first of all, let's just kind of sort of give an overview of some of the architectures that we see here today. I really want to deliver some technology and some information here to you to understand, to show you how this is actually completely doable today in terms of rendering in the cloud, but where can we go tomorrow and further forward with this. So what I'm showing here this morning, straight away, is the deep integration that's taken place over the last couple of years, but frankly we've been working on it for a lot longer than that. When we originally added Thinkbox, that is, with Deadline, the render farm software, added Amazon support as the very first cloud plugin, and it's kind of apt that we're now owned by AWS. But what we've done here over the last couple of years is we've integrated to a deep level, and we refer to it as AWS Portal. And what we're really talking about here is on the left, on-premise, which could be one or more offices, the ability to click a few buttons and essentially provision a secure SSH tunnel. There's no need for VPN or any kind of like dedicated internet connections. It's literally use your public internet, your broadband connection, and then be able to provision all the infrastructure that you're seeing there on the right-hand side of the screen. And the idea is it's a couple of clicks, it's meant to be seamless, it delivers usage-based licensing, it even deals with the automatic asset transfer for you. It's meant to be this turnkey, lovely solution that allows you to very quickly spin up additional compute in the hybrid model, which means bridging your on-premise with a cloud region. Say you're in London, you might actually use the London region, you might use the Dublin region, which is really, really big if you need large quantities of compute. You may be in Paris, use our Paris region. You may be in Germany, in which case you'd use our Frankfurt region, for example. And the idea is that you can click a few buttons within the actual deadline application that so many people and artists move from one studio to another and actually recognize and really know this product, are able to click a few extra buttons and then take what's already existing on-premise and then spin up infrastructure. It handles the asset transfer, runs up one or more Spot instances. So just to explain Spot for a second, EC2 is the compute side, the elastic compute in the cloud from AWS, and Spot inside of EC2 is the dark, unused CPU cycles. So that's the machines that effectively sat there idle that we then provide at a much cheaper rate for you to consume at 80, 90% kind of discount on the on-demand price. So you can see here why that's incredibly attractive for kind of CG rendering. And this portal is designed to really just be that quick, one-stop, turnkey, press a few buttons and it runs up and then renders the assets and then actually copies them back to your on-premise file storage, wherever that may be. And this works for lots and lots of customers, but for an awful lot of pipelines, you need something that really extends and feels like an extension of your arm. It feels natural when you're going into this area, this cloud infrastructure that you don't actually own. So a slightly more complicated diagram, don't worry. But the idea here is on the left, nothing has really changed. But what we do have here is an incredible amount of opportunity and power. There's a reason why the collection of data centers, availability zones, and then regions, which are the different terms to describe the different categorizations and groupings of all of our infrastructure and data centers that we have. There's a reason why we have more of them than any other cloud stack in the world. And that huge amount of capacity, that size, means the availability of the dark, unused Spot instances is just huge. And so you can actually turn on more Spot instances that you probably have the infrastructure and the capability to handle. So what becomes really, really interesting here is perhaps actually your network file storage isn't high enough performance to handle 10,000 machines connecting in the cloud back to your on-premise. So you need to start thinking about the infrastructure and the actual connectivity. So here you can see we have a fiber connection which is dedicated, doesn't go over the internet, and that's known as a direct connect, or DX for short. You could use a VPN connection over the public internet if it's fast enough as well. You may have some content that actually is really, really secure and you'd prefer it not to traverse the public internet, which is what a dedicated fiber connection, such as a direct connect, provides to you. And then you may have a particular storage system that you actually prefer. Studios, have used Isilon for many, many years, or perhaps you have a GPFS system, or you have Dell storage, or you just have a HP storage. There's so many different types out there. Storage becomes almost critical to this workflow, and hopefully you'll see that later this morning. So I'm just listing here whether it's some native file systems that we have in Amazon. So there's Elastic file system known as the FS. Our newer ones, the file system X is the FSX, which is a Luster, great for temporary, quick, high-performance compute for HPC workloads, great for rendering. We also have pure native Windows file servers for those that perhaps want to operate on that platform. And then there's lots of great, powerful third-party storage vendors out there. One company based in primarily London that you might have heard of called PixIT Media do GPFS, but there's also lots of interesting startup storage companies. Cumulo comes from the Isilon world, if you've not heard of that one. Weka is a startup storage vendor that comes out of Tel Aviv. And there's lots and lots of different storage vendors that allow you to obviously have some kind of storage in the cloud that obviously is very, very high performance, and perhaps also caches that allows you to bridge these two separate networks for very large scale rendering here. But you might also use traditional open source tools like rsync or rclone, which is actually a better rsync, to pre-warm the bidirectional synchronization of data. So really that schematic is just showing you that your data should be encrypted. You should use the next generation, latest NVMe-powered EC2 instances, but you shouldn't be vendor locked in. You shouldn't be blocked in terms of what kind of storage or configuration that you wish to use in the cloud. And as a reminder, for some of the icons at the bottom there, there are lots of microservices available within Amazon to allow you to monitor the budget, authentication and access. Make sure you're trailing all your API calls as well as all your syslog, all your login is through CloudWatch. But also the budgets and Trusted Advisor actually automatically scans your account together with Guard Duty and actually looks for security infringements and actually advises you, hey, you're doing something that's really not that great. Should you be opening up that port 8080 on that server? Does that sound like a great idea? So all in, the idea here is that much more sophisticated architectures are possible with us. And hopefully what you're going to see this morning is actually studios that are actually doing that for real today with us. So with that as an overview, to kind of sort of give you a taster of what we're up to on the Thinkbox and the AWS side of things, I want to have a chat, first of all, with yourself, Benoit, about what Milk has been up to with us.
Okay. So yeah, on this slide, you can see information about a project we did last year, which a movie called Adrift, which for which we had 170 shots to do, but 40 of them were huge ocean simulations. So we had to simulate them in Houdini and render them. And from the very beginning, we knew that our local infrastructure couldn't cope with it, so we really needed to use the cloud extensively on that project. And because it was such like a FX-heavy project, we knew there would be lots of data involved, like terabytes, tens of terabytes per shot, basically.
Right.
So we knew we had to do some customization just to allow our cloud infrastructure to work efficiently with all this data. Because our infrastructure, like when we opened Milk in 2013, it was a bit early to open everything in the cloud, obviously. So we started the studio as a traditional setup, everything on premises. And we slowly expanded and added the ability to do cloud rendering.
Right.
So we're operating with the hybrid model that you showed on the previous slide, basically. And we're using GPFS storage.
Right. Yep.
So we basically, when we need, anytime we need to do cloud rendering, we just spin up a cache server in a cache GPFS server in the cloud, and then just spin up all the instances from Deadline with the spot event plugin. And and everything works.
So you're keeping your primary storage on premise.
Yes.
And then you're opening up one or more cache cluster nodes that's holding the kind of sort of the temporary data bidirectionally sync, so that it faces the large amount of compute you're using for the simulation.
Yeah.
So the simulations, that's Houdini, is it primarily based?
On that project, yeah, that was Houdini, and
Right.
also the lighting was done in Houdini, so we used Mantra to render.
Right, okay.
Which a good like side effect of that was that we didn't have to get any licenses, because you have unlimited Mantra licenses.
Nice.
Because licenses is always a big issue in the cloud. So
right, okay.
on that project, that was covered.
Cool. Okay, so obviously from sort of the business benefits point of view, it allows you to obviously scale up way beyond what you would want to invest in traditionally. Gives you that elasticity. Great. Shall we see how that actually looks and look at the breakdown? Yeah. Cool. And we'll talk some more. awesome. Wow. I'm always amazed at that trailer every time I see it. It's brilliant.
Actually, me too.
It's really, really great work.
I'm quite proud of the job we did on
that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
I can really understand how it's like 100 terabytes. You're not joking. I really can see that.
Yeah.
So I thought what was kind of interesting is obviously to see, the effect, the quality of the work that was produced there, but also what you were doing behind the scenes as a developer in the pipeline to actually make that possible on Amazon. Do you want to talk us through what's happening here?
So here we can see basically like a simple setup where we have three jobs. So we have the export job. So in this case, it would be Houdini exporting the artist scene to a mantra scene, the IFD file. And then we have a render job, so basically the mantra render process. And the last one is the post-process job, which could be like a published job, or maybe like merging some tile rendering, or anything that needs to do some action on the rendered images, basically.
Right.
So what we had to do in pipeline is, because of all this amount of data that needed to be sent to the cloud, but also like all the images that we needed to bring back from the cloud.
Yep.
And the biggest issue with the hybrid setup is that you're limited by the connection between your on-prem servers and the cloud.
Right.
So you have a limited bandwidth. So basically, it's a bottleneck. And the more jobs you put on the farm and the more data they need, then the more like pressing the issue becomes. So what we had to do is customize like different parts of this of the renders. So basically, using the deadline API, we added some callbacks at different points.
Right.
So either before the job runs, or before actually like each frame is rendered, or after the frames are rendered. So that's what you can see in the diagram in different shades of yellow and orange. Is all the customizations we added for the cloud, basically.
Right.
So, for instance, in the first one, the first customization we did was adding this pre-job before the render job. And that's basically where we're making sure that all the data we need to render that shot is present on the cloud. So basically, we are adding a job before, which will run just on a single node in the cloud, and this job will be responsible for bringing all the data to the cloud.
Right. So making sure the data's all there before you start spinning up all that compute.
Because what we could see at the beginning is basically we would spin up 50 nodes on the cloud, and then they're all waiting for the same files basically to be there, like all the FX caches and textures and whatnot. So that's one example, and another example is we want the post-process job on the right to wait for all the files to be back from the cloud, because obviously you need the files to be able to process them, and because of this bottleneck, sometimes it can take, I don't know, like 30 minutes, 1 hour for all the files to come back.
Right. Yeah.
So we added this system with the what you can see on the render job. We have a post-task script, and then a script dependency, and then a pre-job. So these three are coming together. And what we're doing is basically every time a frame is rendered, we store the information about its file size and MD5 into a database. And then we're looking on-prem to see if the files have been synced by just checking their file size.
Right.
And also checking the MD5 just to make sure that there was no corruption during the process. So that's all these customizations were done basically just Python scripts that we added to the deadline jobs.
Sure.
Basically.
And then and that scaled for all that water simulation and everything?
It did scale.
Awesome.
We went up to 130,000 cores in the last 2
Right.
weeks.
Okay, so that's thousands.
So that was I don't know, like
machines.
2,500 maybe
Nice.
render nodes. There were 64 cores, I think, at
Yep.
the time. It keeps changing, so yeah, and that scale, yeah.
Brilliant.
And yeah, some shots are 20, 30 terabytes of caches to upload and everything, so that was
Right.
quite
Exciting.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Exciting,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Benoit. Let's move on to my friend Jason.
Yeah.
A lovely dog, as an image
Indeed.
that I've got there for you.
Thanks, mate.
So, Passion, another great customer. So we work and speak lots at London. Do you want to tell me a little bit about kind of why we started talking to one another?
Yeah, I think it was in 2017. I think just not long after Thinkbox joined Amazon, and it was kind of, I think it was about September time. We kind of had a couple of jobs that were kind of due to come in, and we could see that the kind of compute render time was going to hit pretty much at the same time. So it was two jobs hitting at the same time, and our on-premise kind of hardware was kind of coming end of life, and we was thinking, right now maybe the time to kind of start thinking about cloud rendering.
Right.
And I think we'd been watching the space for a while, and I think all the kind of parts were starting to come together. So yeah, we kind of looked at putting it in place end of September. I think it was September, ready for kind of a December render schedule, basically.
Right, okay. And this was obviously, you switched to deadline, and then part of this was, my understanding there was, it happened to be that you had two projects that both needed rendering at the same time.
That's right,
And
yeah,
it was a bit of a, we don't just want to do one, we want to do maybe two.
We do, exactly. And they were both full CG as well, so
right.
it had kind of its challenges in that sense, yeah. So, yeah, kind of learning on the fly was quite hard. Say September we started and we had to learn how to not only get our data there, the technology, the hardware behind it, and workflow as well, kind of understanding the workflow that suits us. Similar kind of things that Benoit kind of was going through as well. Shifting lots of data to the cloud, ready for rendering, and then getting the data back again as well.
Right, okay. But in terms of the projects, obviously it says there they were delivered on time, so that additional capacity, obviously, it didn't sacrifice quality. You were able to scale up and deliver both of those projects at the same time.
We did, yeah. I'm not lying, there were some issues at the time, and I think that's because we were learning on the fly, but it was quite a good learning experience in a way, because you come out the other end understanding more the pinch points. I think you enter these things sometimes, and if you don't go through them pinch points, you kind of don't learn how to optimize, and I think since then we've kind of made it a better solution.
Right, and we continue to talk even today about improvements in the code in Deadline, for example, and adding features and things, and understanding what you're hitting to say, look, try this, try that.
Exactly, and like Benoit as well, we're kind of developing small scripts in-house to kind of make our workflows simpler. So we turn our cloud off and on quite a lot, because not all our projects need the cloud. We sometimes do 2D jobs that need on-premise storage.
Sure.
So we kind of flex up and down when we need to, really.
So best of both worlds, really.
It is,
if you want to, if there's some things that are best kept on-prem, that's very I/O heavy. What's the point in sending it to cloud? Just do that on-prem, but use the cloud for, say, the 3D stuff or something that's really long render times. Awesome. Shall we have a look at just one of those movies quickly?
Yeah, sure.
See what that looks like. Awesome. Brilliant. Really, really good work. Love it. And that was just one of two, wasn't it? There was another one. I've actually seen the other one as well, and it's just as good.
Yeah.
So just brilliant little stories. Really, really good. So on the architecture side of things, how does that look for you? You're GPFS as well?
We're GPFS as well, yeah.
Right,
We,
okay.
as you can see here, we have a direct connect
Okay.
to Amazon Ireland. And we kind of, because we run multiple jobs at the same time, we kind of push our data, probably similar to Benoit. We check what we want, push it there, so it's preloaded.
Yeah.
So then we kind of, when we're ready to render, we can spin up fleets. And we spin up separate fleets for each job as well, so we can manage how much capacity each job is getting and what it's being used for as well.
Right. So when you say fleets, you're referring just I'll expand. So that's spot fleet request.
That's right, sorry.
And so each of those inside of AWS spin up one or more different instance types, which can be different sizes. So different mixture of CPU and RAM, and you can mix those up, and you allocate each of those spot fleet requests to perhaps different pools or groups in deadline, which is the typical variables. So you can allocate the right specification of machine to the right kind of jobs.
Exactly. So yeah, if we know what kind of memory a job needs or kind of how big a job it is, capacity. So whether we need 100 machines or 200, we can change that on a kind of a job by job basis. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. And so you can allocate different sort of cost budget kind of allocations. And do you marry that up against kind of the ongoing project costs that you're tracking as part of the overall studio flow?
Yeah. So that kind of feeds in, and I think that's another thing as well to add is as we've moved into cloud, I think some of our budgeting has kind of evolved as well. We've started to think about budgeting slightly differently, and sometimes it's be more open with your client. This is a cost now, and if they want it quicker, we can do that quicker, and pass that cost directly on, which is a bonus as well now.
Right, great. But essentially, you can, like in the diagram here, we've got one or more cache nodes sitting over there in AWS, and it can run up one or more of those spot fleets, which just runs the deadline software, and that connects to the database and everything that's still on premise.
That's right.
Where you can still render on premise. You're doing the best. You're doing both, aren't you? Still.
If we feel a job doesn't need cloud compute, we can kind of literally just earmark it as a kind of home only kind of project.
Okay.
Or if we do need it, we can turn it on. So not every project gets cloud unless they need it.
Okay.
And as you say, we kind of manage what comes back and what goes there as well through a series of scripts.
Cool. Great. Thank you very much, Jason.
No worries.
So moving on to my last panelist in this A team that I've constructed for this morning. To introduce Untold, no better person than the head of technology. Do you want to talk me through who you are and what you're up to, Sam?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, we started in October of last year, and this is quite a nice little session to do, I think, because I did a similar session last year, which was all about workstations in the cloud, and at that point, it was very much a testing environment. We were testing whether the technology would work, and sort of really getting to grips with it. And what's nice now is that since then, we've kind of we've iterated on that, and we've advanced significantly, and now it's a reality. When I first started talking to Neil and Darren, the co-founders of Untold, we were just discussing what we could do that would be different and what would set us apart from a tech point of view to everyone else operating in the industry, to give us a bit of an advantage from our scalability point of view, but also something quite interesting to talk about. And we discussed that it would be quite easy to just do what had been done before and put a load of equipment on-prem. But actually, that's not particularly, it's not particularly interesting to talk about, and it's not particularly clever. And the chance that we've got to do everything from, sort of greenfield infrastructure environment with no sort of existing hardware is just it's a rare opportunity, and it had to be seized. So, I'd like to just talk through a few of the challenges that we face and a few of the opportunities and the benefits that we've got out of what we've done. So I guess the first thing you have to think about when you're starting a studio is what is this going to look like from a tech point of view? What are your, how much storage do you need? How much render do you need? Those are some quite difficult questions to answer when you're not sure what your future looks like. You're not sure how many jobs you'll get in or how quickly you might get them in. So it becomes quite a difficult conversation. And what we found with the cloud is that, all of that gets abstracted because you can turn it on or you can turn it off. And there's no capex that you have to sort of dish out when you're starting a studio. You don't have to come up with this big sum of money and, what is really sort of an educated guess at best as to what you might need and how you might be able to provision your artists with what they need to run the studio.
Right.
And that was kind of, that's the main problems we faced. And obviously we've solved this in a different way to what other people have done, in that we're the first studio to be operating completely in the public cloud. So that's all of our storage, that's all of our workstations, and all of our render as well. And because it's all in the cloud, what we'll see in a few slides' time is that we have a much different layout to Benoit and Jason, and it's a less scary diagram, I think. With less things to think about in a way, but arguably more things to think about because no one's ever done this before. We're very much writing the blueprints for this thing. We have, me as head of technology had no one to ask, what things should look like, what we should be doing. So it becomes quite a challenging environment from a tech point of view to operate in, but also a very interesting one. And an opportunity we had to take.
We started talking, obviously, you can almost go back a whole year, can't you, from FMX last year, and we were talking before, obviously, even then as well. And it's taken quite a bit of communication between the two companies, AWS and yourself, as more of a, it was more of a partnership, would you describe it as? Because
yeah, definitely.
There's been some give and take, isn't there?
Yeah, so we had all the questions, how do we knew what a studio needed to look like. We have a huge wealth of experience at Untold. We've got some industry experts who know how to successfully run a creative studio. And what I guess my questions to you, Mike, have always been, this is what we would like to do. What are the services available in AWS to make this happen? Some of which are native to AWS and some of which are through your partner incentives, such as our storage solution, which is provided by Weka. They're one of your AWS partners now, and yeah, so I've been working quite closely with those guys. But it's all very much a learning curve for everyone involved. Wecker included in that. They do some phenomenally fast storage, but we are, I believe, their first media and entertainment customer, and that's a very different environment from what they're used to. So that sort of brought its own challenges. But we'll have a look at the slides in a sec, because it's quite, it sort of demystifies the whole thing and makes it, like I said, a lot less scary.
Sure.
And not really that different from what you would find on-prem with regards to a tech setup. We still have the same things. We still have like license servers. Obviously, we still have authentication servers. We still have workstations. We have render nodes. It just all doesn't live on-prem, and we just don't have to worry about the aircon or electricity bills or maintaining a data center. I just completely forget about the whole thing and safe in the knowledge that someone else who's AWS is thinking about that for me. It's a lot.
It's someone else's problem now.
It's someone else's problem. It's not my problem.
Brilliant.
However, there are different things to think about. For example, you have to be diverse in your thinking. In all aspects of this, you have to spread yourself across multiple availability zones in AWS. A question I get asked quite frequently is, what happens if your internet goes down, given that all the artists are just, effectively connected to their workstations over, well, it's actually not the internet, it's a direct connect, as we saw before. It's a private, uncontended connection. And that's a great question. And how we solve that is obviously just by putting more than one line in. So it's quite easy for someone to just dig through a cable in the street. It happens all the time, especially in the area that we are at the moment, where they're doing a lot of work to the roundabout in front of our office. You see the diggers rolling in, and you just think, God, that could be so easily one of our cables that just goes snap right then. But so what we're doing, fortunate in the building is very well equipped as well. It's got a huge, it's got very good infrastructure. So we've got 2 risers. Our cables go down both of those risers.
Right.
One goes out the front of the building, one goes out the back, and they go through completely different points of presence over to different AWS data centers. So, it's about giving yourself the best possible chance for that.
So it's not just you're going up, turning left up the street or right up the street. You're also coming to us from those 2 different locations.
Yeah.
One of our locations, there is always the possibility that one of our 2 locations could drop as well. So it's been basically as diverse as possible to protect, that's because the workstations, everything is in the cloud. So you're just essentially streaming the pixels to the monitors. So in terms of hardware on premise, you've got keyboard, mouse, Wacom tablet, and the monitors.
Yeah. So the actual amount of data we're streaming back to our offices is very minimal. We use a variety of different streaming protocols, and they are very efficient at in their data transfer. We're not shifting terabytes. We're rarely shifting gigabytes. It's that good. So
awesome. So none of that data transfer. You've got a different set of problems now because you're in the cloud where no one else has done that really before.
Yeah, different challenges. Different challenges in that yes, we've still got a load of stuff to work out, but it's we're definitely in a great place, and it is difficult being at the cutting edge of technology. Let's have a look at the slide, and I'll sort of chat you through it.
Before we do, I actually found this. I've been YouTubing. I've been on the internet, and I found this video of this guy.
I'm sorry about this, everyone. We are a group of people who've come together in the industry, sort of born out of a desire to do something different, do something new, and a bit of a willingness to rewrite the rules. We're the first creative studio to be completely operating in the public cloud. We're doing everything on AWS. The render is there, the storage is there. There's no moving of anything. And that's what really changes the game, actually. When you're setting a studio up, you need to make a load of decisions. You need to decide how much storage you want, how much capacity do you want from that file system. You need to decide how much render you want. If we get a big job tomorrow, I can say, okay, well, it's time to scale our storage. We just add more nodes to our storage cluster, and away we go. The speed at which we can scale is just phenomenal, and that's all thanks to the cloud. What Thinkbox did was they built a test lab for us in London, and we tried to replicate the environment as best we possibly could, and actually it lifted the whole team. Just seeing this in reality and seeing what was possible. AWS has a great support network and a great support team. I would say they were as passionate about getting this thing off the ground as we were, and they've just been a tremendous help.
It's a marketing man's dream, isn't it, to find a video like that, Samuel?
You're welcome.
Let's cut to the biscuits here, shall we?
Yeah.
Why don't you talk me through this architecture that you've put together here?
Sure. So as you guys have seen, we've got a really great space on Old Street Roundabout in London. We've fortunate, not to have to spend that outlay on all our tech equipment, so it gave us more budget to to spend on niceties of a studio. We've got a really nice environment, and also more importantly to acquire good talent. It's really sort of unlocked things for us. So just having a look at this diagram, so you can see our on-prem infrastructure consists of not an artist's workstation. It's 2 screens and a little thin client, which is a very low-powered machine, which runs our streaming protocol software. And that machine connects over a direct connect, or one of our 2 direct connects to AWS. And those are, fully, as we said, fully redundant. 2 connections. We do failovers regularly to test them, and when we do the failovers, no one even knows what's happened. So that's quite a testament to the equipment we put in place there.
Is that like when you say you fail over between the 2 DX? Is what you're streaming the pixels? Do they not get interrupted?
No one notices.
No one even knows on the workstations.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Cool.
And obviously we're sort of primed for people working remotely as well. We're obviously thinking about Brexit on the horizon as everyone else is, and we're making sure we position ourselves for, to make use of talent that doesn't have to be in the UK.
So you're bringing in more remote people. So you've got remote people to your remote studio.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right,
we've got a bunch of remote users working at the moment, and that's working really well for us. It's one of our goals is to try and unlock the need to be in a physical location. As with everything else we're doing, we believe it shouldn't, just because people have built studios in the past and everyone's been in studios, they don't still have to sit there. Why can't someone work from Spain or from France, as they are doing now? So, as you can see, we've got on the right, your right-hand side of this diagram, Weka.io is our storage cluster. It's quite intelligent. It's effectively a giant cache. It uses really fast NVMe storage on the instances, and it tiers to block storage, to object storage, when as files get promoted and demoted. So it's quite a clever mechanism they've got there. And we used G3 extra large instances for our workstations, which is what the artists connect to. And they, as an artist workstation goes, it's wildly over provisioned. In terms of networking as well as RAM and graphics. Right. So that's quite a nice thing for the artists. They've got the best possible sort of infrastructure to work in. So productivity is definitely high.
So you're not getting down on your hands and knees and pulling out a graphics card out of a really, really dusty computer.
Yeah, no.
It's actually someone else's problem on my side now to do that for you.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And for our render, we're using Deadline. We're using their Spot Event plugin as well. So when an artist submits a render to the farm, all the instances spin up in about 3 minutes and appear in Deadline, and they chug away and do all their compute. Obviously, I don't have to think about things that Jason and Benoit have to think about. Our data is already in the cloud, so there's no transferring of anything. It's all, it's there already. Over really fast, in really fast networking conditions. So scalability is the goal here, and that's what's really making it for us at the moment. I've had requests come in on Monday morning to, for 2 people to start that afternoon, and we've just been able to spin up a couple of workstations and have them sit in seats and get working that afternoon. So
so it's the perfect kind of.
It's crazy.
That rental
it's crazy. It's
panic for computers.
Yeah, it's a great environment to be in. Like I said, we started in October last year with about 6 people, and now we're 60. So we're growing fast, and we're doing some great jobs at the moment as well.
Cool, awesome. Okay, 3 very different but similar stories in terms of the theme of obviously using us. I'm sure you've got a lot of questions. I know I'm constantly grilling these guys, I was last night, about kind of how things are evolving and stuff like that. So I've got a couple of questions, if I may. So there's a lot of talk of kind of sort of Windows and Linux and stuff like that. Is cloud Linux only? Is Windows still a thing? Can it be a thing in the cloud?
You can. Okay. I think the two projects, well, both the projects that we did in 2017 were both running on Windows. But I think it's worth noting that Sam mentioned that kind of the Linux boxes spin up in about 3 minutes. We were seeing Windows boxes spinning up in about 10 minutes. And when you're paying per minute and you've got 250 machines running, you start paying that cost. And really, if you want to optimize your performance and your cost spending, I think Linux is the way to go.
Right.
But you can do it. It's just
on the render nodes.
Yeah. And probably the same for workstations, I would say, as well. They probably have a...
Yeah, I haven't seen a great deal of difference in the time they spin up, to be honest. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but I mean, we've got quite a vanilla build of Windows. We're primarily a Linux studio. We regularly spin up. At the moment, we're spinning up just over 50 instances a day, and I would say probably about 5 of those are Windows, and that's just for things like Photoshop and ZBrush. And
right.
Yeah, it's also like it's kind of a weight off my shoulders as well, in that an artist can just connect to this workstation the same way as they connect to their Linux machine. They connect to them both at the same time, in fact, and they can have two sessions of our streaming protocol open, one on each monitor, and they can have Windows on one side and Linux on the other side, which is kind of what you need, really. Previous places that I've worked, we've tried all sorts of different funky methods of getting Windows to work on Linux and getting Photoshop available to the artist, but this is definitely the easiest way I've found so far.
Right, okay, cool. So there's no difference. You could, for example, still continue to use Windows on premise and just use Linux for your back end and then use the path mapping in Deadline, for example, so it is seamless. Or you could just switch everything to Linux, or perhaps it's ever so slightly, it might be a bit slower if you're just running Windows, but they're both options, really. Cool, okay, great. So at least there's choices there that you can make as a customer. So a very leading question here. In all the things that we've seen here, is there still some fundamental flaws with the cloud? Is there anything that hasn't been solved yet, Benoit? Is there... Where is this going? Because as a pipeline, we iterate. Things just, we deliver a show, but then that doesn't mean the pipeline doesn't stop, being developed. So what is next?
Well, for us, because we're in a hybrid setup,
yeah.
I mean, we know that the future is basically what Sam was talking about, like having everything in cloud.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the future. It's where everyone is going. But for us, it's how do we get from the hybrid solution to that, like full on? What do we do with all our existing hardware? How do we transition? Like, what are the steps we need to go through? And that's, hard problem
finding
to
that
solve.
transition.
Yeah. But in terms of cloud, like you were talking about, like fundamental issues, and I mentioned it earlier about Mantra, is licenses is still like something that's is really like an issue because you don't have per minute billing, and you can really easily spin up 2,000 render nodes, but how do you get 2,000 licenses for your renderer, for your first system, for everything? And when you talk to software vendors, they don't know yet. Basically, they still need to figure out a business model that works for them in the cloud, and they need to change all their...
Sure, because you're directly asking them to fundamentally change their main revenue stream, and that's probably quite a scary thing.
Yeah. You can even get like a site license, but is the cloud a separate site? Like, depending on the software vendors, they don't all have the same answers. And,
Sure, but it is, obviously Mantra's great advantage there in that particular use case. And on the Thinkbox side, if you didn't know, we have usage-based licensing. So instead of in the AWS portal part, the very first slide I showed, the idea is that also comes with automatic provisioning of licensing for the particular render engines and plugins and things that we support. But fundamentally, if we just dial that back for a second, Thinkbox needs to obviously have support. We do for the majority of render engines and plugins, but if there's just one missing, that could be your Achilles heel, couldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can still bring your own licensing and VPN connection and do all the usual things.
Yeah.
But you need the licenses.
Yeah, you need a license on. Yeah, if it's a yearly license, how do you do? Like you can't buy like 10,000 licenses just for one day. I mean, you can't buy it for a year and then just use it a day.
Sure. So it's still very much the consumption-based business model of licensing. Essentially, I guess, if I was to summarize, it hasn't caught up yet with the infrastructure and what the cloud stacks can actually deliver to VFX studios. So before you take all your equipment that you have on-prem at the moment outside and set it on fire, we need to work on the licensing problem.
Basically, yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
I mean, I don't know how Sam is doing with all the licenses.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely I would say that's probably our main bottleneck at the moment is our licensing. Yeah, it's definitely easier with Mantra. You can have as many Mantra as you want, which we do, and we make good use of. Things like Arnold are more difficult for us because it costs money, and then that's another conversation you have to have. So yeah,
cool.
A consumption-based model has to be coming. It's just going to unlock everyone. It's going to allow us to use more, it's revenue that license providers aren't otherwise seeing from us. So, yeah, it'll be coming, I should think.
Thank you. So, very different studios, different stories. Shall we open up to questions quickly? So, there is a burning question down here at the front. I see one at the back. If I repeat your question on the microphone.
So as we were seeing in the slides before, so we're using the direct connect, so it doesn't go on over the public internet. And then it's a conversation with them and with Amazon as well that we're having, and just to convince them that it's actually as secure and maybe even more secure than having everything on-prem. Because there's tons of security engineers at Amazon, and we don't have tons of security engineers in-house. Obviously, there's more risk because you're putting more data outside of your building, but I think they're quite on board. I mean, when they give you like this amount of work to do, they know you can't do it all in-house, so they have to allow for that to happen. And it's been agreed for each project, and every time we managed to convince them that it was secure and they were on board, basically.
There's also the compliance and auditing, so MPAA, there's the Marvel, Disney approvals and stuff like that, and that's evolving into what's known as the TPN initiative as well, which essentially have a number of different tiers. AWS is actually on the working committee for the cloud stacks for this, but it is still kind of a partnership with the individual studios and the actual studios that you're working with, like say Warner Brothers or anyone else, Disney, Marvel, obviously super sensitive, but all of that is very much achievable. And I think if yourself on behalf of a studio need to understand that more, I think you should definitely reach out to people like myself, Amazon. Yeah. Was there another question at the back? So just to repeat the question, it's asking Sam about streaming protocols and how all that works.
Yeah, we make use of a couple of different streaming protocols. Each one has its advantages. We're making use of Teradici for artist interaction and for really good interactivity with apps such as Maya, and we're making use of a product Amazon's DCV,
okay.
which is giving us advantages over Teradici in some situations. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very much still a work in progress, and I would say that's where we're feeling the edge of technology at the moment, and we're just sort of waiting for things to catch up. But
sure,
yeah, with there's not one that does everything, so you kind of have to investigate and get a bit dirty with it.
It's an emerging space. It's is anyone streaming 8K at the moment? I don't think they are. Let's dial that back and at least half that number and more. But it's definitely an evolving space. Definitely watch that space as we move forward through 2019 and 2020. I think there's lots of different providers and protocols and things that are enhancing, but for this exact reason, to open up this kind of workflow and make this stuff a reality. 10-bit, 12-bit. HDR, we know the content, that huge demand that's coming from the likes of Netflix, Amazon Prime. So things have to change because they need to change. So we're almost out of time. So let me just finish off by thanking the audience, thanking you all for coming and listening to this. Fantastic to see you all. And also thank you to my three guests, Benoit, Jason, and Sam, for coming. So thank you very much. And we'll be around at the end if you want to come and ask us other questions you weren't comfortable asking in front of everyone else and stuff like that. Thank you all.